Hi everyone. When he was only 19, my grandfather, Erd Kuckerman, jumped into a train in Aix-les-Bains in the east of France. It was not any train. This train was bringing him from the occupied zone to the free one during World War II. As a Jewish man, this train was bringing him from the fear of being arrested and deported to the possibility of fighting back and finally be free. When he entered the station, it was filled with military. There was only one way to get in the train: take the risk. So he just walked straight away to this man, this Frenchman, who was taking care of the baggage room. And he said to him, "I have to go through." Maybe because he was this tall, impressive, dark-haired man, the man silently moved aside and let him pass behind the counter, where a door was giving access to the platform. My grandfather walked quickly, and as he was about to enter the train, bumped into this German military. Greatly inspired, he said, "When is the train departing?" The German military answered, "Jetzt, now." My grandfather didn't lose time and jumped into the train and ran straight to the toilet, scared to death, not even taking the time to close the door. At the same moment, some other militaries were controlling people's paper in the train. And as they walked past the toilet, they saw that the door was open, so they didn't look inside. They just walked past. I can imagine the deep breath, the relief that my grandfather felt when he heard the noise of the boots fading away. Weeks later, my grandfather was meeting other incredible men and entered the resistance, le maquis, as we call it. They worked together and fought and contributed to end this war. I love that story. I love it because I don't really need to know much more about it. I don't need to know exactly what happened when my grandfather was fighting, because for me this story has it all. It's a story about overcoming your fear. The fear of being arrested, deported, the fear of dying. It's about overcoming this fear and surviving. It's also a story about courage. The courage my grandfather had to walk into the station and try and jump in this train. It's a story about hope in action. The hope my grandfather had for a better world, for a better future, that he put into action by joining the resistance. Finally, it's a story about empowerment. Empowerment, the power my grandfather felt when he entered the resistance, and the feeling he had that he could end this war with others. I always wondered why I was so interested in politics and changing the world and fighting the injustice. And I think that story is key. I think my grandfather's story combines everything you need to turn anyone into an unstoppable activist for change. It's a story about courage, hope in action, and empowerment. Maybe because of what happened to my family, to my grandfather, and millions of other people in Europe, my deepest fear is to see our world going down that path again. And unfortunately, that fear is being activated every single day when I watch the news. From Paris to Brunei, from New Zealand, everywhere you can see there's news. But strangely, that fear of seeing the world going down that path again doesn't bring me either to apathy or sense of despair. It drives me every single day to support people who want to change this world. I work at change.org, Change.org is the largest campaigning platform that allows anyone to start a campaign on something deeply important to them. We don't run the campaigns. What we do is provide people with the tools and the support they need to have impact. There are over 270 million people using the platform in the world. And after 7 years working with those incredible people, I realized that as incredible, as amazing as my grandfather was, he was not unique. I came to the conclusion that these wonderful ingredients that my grandfather put into my life, courage, hope in action, empowerment, are actually the key for driving people and entering the world in a very different way, from fear and desperation to active participation. I've met many inspiring people during those 7 years, and I couldn't give you all their names. But there are a few people who've inspired me greatly. First, there is Christelle. Christelle has lost her daughter, she was only 16, from an overdose of codeine. Codeine is a painkiller. It's sold for €5 in pharmacy. And it has become a way for a lot of teenagers to get high. When Christelle lost her daughter, just a few weeks later, she went online and she started a campaign on change. She got 50,000 people to sign her petition. She was all over the media, telling her story over and over and over. Can you imagine how much courage she had to do that, to go online and tell her story? For me, this campaign is amazing, not only because Christelle did succeed in getting the minister to make sure that codeine was only sold on prescription, but also because she showed so much courage, so much hope when she had just lost her daughter. She did save kids' lives, but she also made so many more people thinking, I can overcome my sadness, I can overcome my fear, I can turn my sorrow into impact for others. Very often, when I meet people, when I go and have drinks and I talk about the campaigns that are happening on the platform, many people tell me, well, that's a lost battle. It's not worth it. You can't do anything. And I'm quite proud to say that very often I can prove them wrong. Modi is a 16-year-old child from Mali. He has crossed the Mediterranean Sea to come to France, and while he was crossing, lost his only family member. He was able to rebuild some kind of life in the city of Tours in France. He met wonderful people who supported him. He started playing football with other kids of the city. He was trying and have a life. But the administration had decided differently for Modi. And because of a totally random administrative rule, he had to be sent to Lille in the north of France to integrate a shelter for young isolated migrants, leaving behind him the little bit of stability he had built for himself. Those cases are complex. The French administration is a nightmare. And let's face it, very few people care about refugees being sent around. You could say that was a lost battle. Modi was really afraid, and his friends were very worried. But they decided there had to be hope. And they decided to put that hope into action. They started a campaign. It was a small campaign, but it grew incredibly big. They pinged every single influencer online to tell them the story about Modi. They got 29,000 people to sign their petition. With the team at Change, we were looking at the campaign and we thought, wow, it's amazing and incredible to see when it's put into action what hope can do. A few weeks later, Modi was in the train station another one. He was waiting to take a train for Lille when he got a phone call. The administration had stepped back, and Modi could stay. By putting their hope into action, Modi and his friend showed to everyone who signed their petition and beyond that status quo can be challenged. That if you have so much fear, you should hold on to your hope and put it into action. Recently, I was also inspired by another woman. Yes, a woman again. Her name is Priscilla. If you had met her in the streets, probably you would never imagine she's the woman who helped trigger one of the biggest social movements we've had in France for years. Priscilla is 35 years old. She lives in the suburb of Paris. And she was really fed up with the rise in fuel prices that happened recently. Because she had to take her car to go to work. There was no transportation. She was really fed up also because she realized by doing her research that none of the money that was used on those taxes was used to help people transition, to support policies against climate change. She didn't know any journalists, she didn't know any politicians. The only thing she had was her story and her facts. So she went online and she started a petition. And within weeks, more than 1 million people signed her petition. With the power of social media, many people joined her appeal. And the movement from online went offline. And it's now called the Yellow Vest movement. For 21 weeks now, people are demonstrating all over France, in their vast majority peacefully, to ask for social justice and a better democracy. Most of those people have never participated in anything of that kind before. Those people were desperate. They were afraid for what was going to go on at the end of their months. But they chose empowerment over despair and skepticism. When you give a voice and space to people, and especially the most vulnerable one, then everyone realizes their potential, their power, and they put that into action and have tremendous impact. Fear isolates us. Fear divides us. There are many people out there that want us to fear repression or the other. They want us to believe that we are alone, that we are powerless. Well, let me tell you, they are wrong. Because in all the stories I've told you, there is another common element. It's the power of a community. Together, we can build things. We can grow our courage. We can grow hope. We can empower each other. And technology has made it so easy for us to connect horizontally. Every day, I see we're regaining power. Every day, I see people challenging laws, changing laws on change.org. I see people who are making politicians and companies accountable. So, just to close here, courage, hope in action, and empowerment are the only thing we need with our community to take action and change things. So that as I close here, I have one thing to ask you. Take a minute, maybe close your eyes, or not. Think about that fear that's been instilled in you. Think about this thing you're fearing. Forget about it. Instead, think about this one thing you cherish, this one thing that you love, this right that is worth fighting for. And take action. When you go out of this theater, start a petition, join a community, call your decision maker. Don't let fear stop you. gather all the courage you have, all the hope you have, and feel your own power to become a change maker. Thank you.